Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Steve here with Stephen, with you here for this week's 10-minute Torah. And thank you as always, for watching. So, I'm starting to go by Rabbi Shmuel more and more. I really like my Hebrew name. I'm not ready to go by Samuel yet, which is my middle name, Stephen Samuel Epstein. But I kind of like the idea of using my Hebrew name. I feel like it's who I am more. It's kind of weird, but or maybe not. Maybe I just this being a rabbi, I just feel more attached to Judaism, to my roots, Shmuel. I like the name. A couple of different interpretations. Years ago, when I was 14, I was in a confirmation class with Rabbi Vinicor, who I really liked the guy. One of those people that really makes an impression on you when you're younger, when you're a teenager. He was very into some of the mystical aspects of Torah. He took me to my first uh, protesting against Soviet Jewry, and this was back in like '69. So he told me my name was Shmuel. His name is God. Now I've also seen an interpretation, Lishmol, which is from the right, and the right hand is the hand, the hand of mercy. It's we put the right shoe on first, et cetera, et cetera. So name means a lot. So if you are curious about your name, let me know. We can have a discussion and talk a little bit about it. My wife's name is Rachel, Ruach El, the Spirit of God, which I like. So there it is. So before we get to this week's portion discussing that Parashat Shemini, I want to say I am very proud of all of you for turning out for our mini Purim mini carnival, and the reading of the Megillah. It was a lot of fun. Just it was wonderful to have everybody back in the synagogue. I know they're talking about yet another variant of COVID. When will it all end? Maybe it will never. So we just have to get ahead of the curve with our medical stuff. But whatever it was, whatever happens going forward, it was just great for everybody to be together and have that event. And let's just kind of hope and put our attention on and work with medical science to make sure that there's more of this, not less of this. Okay. All right. So let's get right to it. Parsha Shemini. Lots happening in this particular portion. Of course, we've still got the dedication. And this is the portion where Aaron's two oldest sons, Nadav and Abihu, go into the Mishkan, the tabernacle, when they're not supposed to be there, where they're not supposed to go, with a quote unquote strange fire in their fire pans. So they had these censers, that's what they called them. They have these pans, they put the incense in, they light them, and that's where your mist, your aroma, your fragrance, comes from. And there was very specific instructions as to how to make the fragrance, the incense. And in fact, you're not supposed to make it. I mean, we have the instructions in the Torah. There was a family of the Levites that were expert at making it, but we're not supposed to make it. It's only made for that one purpose, for the tabernacle. That's it. You don't, burn it in your house. I mean, if you want to burn frankincense and myrrh, get some incense sticks, do what you want to do. But as far as making that particular um, uh, uh, recipe, no, not allowed. But the point is, they went in. Uh, there's a lot of interpretations as to what they were up to. Um, you've got all, as you usually do, you've got the whole range of interpretations from what did they think they were doing? They weren't supposed to be there. They were punished. They were, in line to be the head priests. There was this attitude, this arrogance that they had that, oh, when is Moses and Aaron going to be gone so we can take over? Just this disrespect. And that's why God took their lives. There's also the idea on the other spectrum is that they were just so overwhelmed, with passion, with compassion, and ritual, and just kavod, honor for Hashem, that they just couldn't wait to get in there. And God took them because He wanted them, then to reward them in the afterlife. What the answer is probably somewhere in between. Interestingly enough, and one of my um, favorite ways to analyze Torah is by context. Rabbi Yishmael, and this is in some of the more traditional prayer books. They have the 13 homiletic principles of how we analyze Torah. One of them is context. At the end of the episode, it says, make sure that if you're going to officiate in the temple, in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, you haven't had any alcohol. So a lot of people think they were drunk when they went in there, and they just weren't thinking rationally. It was kind of like a couple of frat boys just having a little party. So maybe that was that too. The point is that Moses says to Aaron, well, what's done is done, and just leave it alone, and let's just go on with our business. So that's the first part of the parsha. The next part, and this is our triennial reading, and as some of you have seen, one of the things I'm starting to do is when I do my Devar Torah, and when I do the, a lot of these talks, these 10-minute Torahs, I've been focusing more and more on the particular part of the parsha that we're going to be reading. And again, I know you've heard this many times, but the conservative movement feels that doing a full parsha, it's kind of a long, it's involved, and we're not really don't have the intent, whatever. So we're just going to divide each portion into 3 parts, and this year we're doing the last third of each portion. Next year it'll be the first third, and my talks will be designed, or they'll be wrapped around the first part of the parsha. So now we get introduced to, not really introduced, but now expounded upon the ideas of Kashrut. And introduced is the wrong word, because we heard a few portions ago that we heard the commandment, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk. This is back in Exodus. So now we get a whole exposition as to what we can eat and what we can't eat as far as animal life. Now, remember that after Noah and the ark landed on dry ground, and the ground had, become suitable for walking on, it had hardened, and, now plant life was starting to reappear. God said, okay, now humankind, you can eat meat. So it's not, before this, it was kind of like whatever. Now we're getting specific instructions as to what we can eat and actually when we can eat. So, of course, with the beasts and the animals, it's a cloven hoof chewing the cud, and it distinguishes between other animals or mammals, if you were, that may look like they have cloven hoofs, but they don't really, like a pig, or they might have cloven hoofs, but they don't chew their cud, like I believe the camel is, not really a cloven hoof. They go on for this laundry list of mammals that we can and that we can't, and they kind of take it in order of hierarchy of animal life. So after the animals, it talks about the birds, and it basically doesn't really give any characteristics, but it said these are the fowl you can eat and these are what you can't. And when you delve into it, when you dive down, you tend to notice that the birds that we can eat are domesticated, and the birds that we can't are birds of prey. And of course, reptiles, rodents, no. Insects is kind of a gray area. They say we can eat grasshoppers and locusts. Not that anybody wants to, but you can. All right. And of course, the fish, fins and scales, swordfish. That's kind of is kind of a gray area, because do they or do they not? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So it depends on which rabbi you look at. So even the animals, by the way, when you think about it, we can, ox, bulls, cows, goats, sheep, but lions, tigers, we can't. So in a way, there's that demarcation. So sages have discussed this. Now, why is this there? And the reason is, at the end of the parsha, it says, you are holy, so what you put in your mouth will be holy. A lot of sages have looked at this and said, well, when you're eating a passive animal, okay, you are what you eat. We all know that. So you're absorbing the flesh of an animal. That becomes part of your flesh, and people say that the animal is performing a mitzvah by becoming part of your body. And, world to come, whatever happens to animals, then that's their next step in their spiritual evolution. So, consider that. I know today people are vegans, or they're, anti-vegetarians or whatever, and, gluten-free and all that, and that's fine. But this is one reason that's offered. So it's all about taking in something passive so you don't get the aggression of the animal. That doesn't incorporate into your body, the aggression. And I believe that ancient pagans, their food, their diet was basically based on giving them power as warriors because that's how they survived. Now, think about it this way too. One of the most well-known commandments is about kashrut, what you can eat, what you can't, and you can't have meat and milk. But another very, very frequently cited commandment in one version or another is the idea of gossip. I've counted about 8 times in the Torah. It goes on about that, right? Kashrut is just twice, but it expands on it. Thou shalt not murder, twice in the Torah. That's it. But gossiping, okay, 10 Commandments: don't bear false witness, don't be a talebearer, don't join with others in the commission of a lie, etc., etc. So the point of it is that what goes into your mouth needs to be holy as well as what comes out of your mouth. Mouth's a very important word because that's how we communicate. Think about that, and thank you again for listening. Until next week, until Shabbat, hope to see you all there. Shabbat Shalom.